We rush through life, but how often do we pause to hear? You know that feeling, right? You pull out your phone, maybe just for a quick check, and suddenly you're caught in a digital current. TikTok's flying past, Instagram reels looping endlessly, threads stacked higher than you can scroll. Everything is fast, loud, urgent, demanding your attention. It's like the whole world has turned up the volume to 11, all the time. And if you're anything like me, rushing between work deadlines, trying to get dinner on the table before the kids turn into gremlins, and then maybe just collapsing onto the sofa for 5 minutes of peace. You probably feel that speed in your bones. We rush through life, but how often do we pause to truly hear? But somewhere in that constant acceleration, in that blur of notifications and never-ending to-do lists, I think we've collectively lost something incredibly simple, yet profoundly important: the ability to truly listen. I'm not just talking about hearing words, not just processing sounds. I mean giving space, real, unhurried, generous space for another human being to unfold, to express themselves fully, without interruption or the silent hum of your own reply already forming in your head. Think about it. How many times have you been in a conversation, maybe with your spouse after a long day, or a colleague in a tense meeting, where you both feel like you're talking at each other, rather than with? How many arguments at home, how many misunderstandings at work could have softened, could have taken a completely different turn if just one person had genuinely paused, leaned in, and truly listened, not just to the words, but to the feeling behind them? I often find myself guilty of it, especially when I'm tired. My wife might be sharing something important about her day, and I'm nodding, making all the right noises. But inside, I'm mentally reviewing that last email from my boss or calculating if I have enough time to finish that report before bedtime. My body is there. My ears are open, but my attention, my presence, is somewhere else entirely. And you can feel the disconnect almost immediately, can't you? That subtle shift in the air, that slight tension, because the other person senses they haven't truly landed. They haven't been heard in the way they needed to be. It's not malicious, this lack of listening. It's rarely intentional. It's often just the byproduct of a life moving too fast, with too many inputs, too many demands on our finite mental energy. We're so busy trying to keep all the plates spinning, the work projects, the school runs, the doctor's appointments, the household chores, that the gentle art of simply being present and deeply listening gets pushed aside, deemed a luxury we can't afford. But what I've increasingly found to be true, and what this incredible book, Deep Listening, The Lost Art of Connection by Oscar Trimboli, suggests, is that it's not a luxury at all. It's a foundational requirement for living a life that feels rich, meaningful, and genuinely connected. The book really makes you stop and think about the subtle ways we miss out. It's not just about what we say, but about the pauses, the unspoken emotions, the underlying needs that often go unaddressed because we're too quick to offer advice, to fix, or to simply move on to the next topic. Deep listening isn't about being passive. It's an active, engaged, almost courageous act. It's about giving another person the dignity of your full attention, allowing them the space to figure things out for themselves, sometimes just by voicing them aloud to a receptive ear. It's a challenging practice, particularly when our default mode is often to be half listening while planning our next move. But the rewards, as we'll explore, are immense. It helps us not only understand others better, but in a strange way, understand ourselves more deeply too, by quietening our own internal monologue long enough to truly tune in. Part 2, Deep Listening, more than just hearing words. So, this struggle with genuinely listening, this feeling of being constantly pulled in a million directions, it's not just a personal failing, is it? It's a symptom of the world we inhabit. And it's exactly this challenge that Emily Casriel dives into with her insightful book, Deep Listening, The Lost Art of Connection. Now, let me be clear right from the start. This isn't another self-help guide on how to win an argument or how to manipulate a conversation to your advantage. Quite the opposite, actually. This book isn't about techniques to get your point across better. It's about presence. It's about stepping back, quieting your own agenda, and making space for someone else to truly be heard. Casriel's work really drives home that true listening isn't just about hearing the words that someone is saying. It's about creating this almost sacred, safe space where another person feels completely comfortable revealing their deepest thoughts, their truest feelings, without fear of judgment, interruption, or the constant feeling that you're just waiting for your turn to speak. It's about being fully present, eyes, ears, and mind focused entirely on them. For me, as someone who spends a good chunk of his day in front of screens, juggling deadlines, and then coming home to the beautiful chaos of family life, the idea of being fully present can often feel like another impossible task added to an already overflowing list. It conjures images of meditative monks, not a dad trying to figure out if he packed the right lunch for school tomorrow. But the book shows it's not about achieving some Zen master level of focus overnight. It's about intention, about making a conscious choice. At its heart, deep listening reminds us that this act of genuine listening is a profound act of connection in a noisy, often fragmented world. The book lays out 8 steps or practices, but the overarching theme is a simple yet powerful one. When we truly listen, we slow down. We acknowledge the other person's humanity, their worth, and their unique perspective. Think about the daily grind. You're at work, in a meeting, someone is talking, and you're already mentally drafting your reply or thinking about the next item on the agenda. Or you're at home, your partner is sharing a frustration, and you're jumping to offer a solution before they've even finished explaining the problem. We do this, often with the best of intentions, to be helpful, to be efficient. But what we often miss is that sometimes people don't need a solution. They just need to be heard. They need to feel understood. This really resonates with something I've picked up from the Stoics, though they might not have used the term deep listening. They talked a lot about controlling your inner world, about managing your impressions and your reactions. Seneca, for example, often reminded us of the importance of self-mastery, of not being swayed by external chatter or internal impulses. For me, applying that to listening means consciously quieting that internal voice that's always ready with a retort, always itching to weigh in. It's a kind of inner discipline, isn't it? A choice to manage your own internal landscape, your assumptions, your judgments, your biases, so you can truly be there for another person, letting their words and feelings land without immediate filtration or personal agenda. This self-awareness, this inner quiet, is where Casriel suggests deep listening truly begins. Because if you're not aware of your own inner noise, it will inevitably hijack the conversation. It's about cultivating an inner stillness so that the space you offer to someone else isn't just physically empty, but emotionally and mentally empty too, ready to receive. That's what makes it a safe space. No quick fixes, no judgment, just presence. It's a challenging practice, especially in our high-speed culture. But the rewards are measurable. It builds trust, it mends rifts, and it creates a genuine connection that is so easily lost in our busy, often superficial interactions. That's what deep listening is fundamentally about, cultivating genuine connection in a world that often feels disconnected. Part 3. Presence over productivity, a Stoic approach to listening. We've all felt it, haven't we? That relentless hum of constant busyness. The work deadlines stack up like precarious Jenga towers. The kids have their own whirlwind of activities and demands. The house always seems to have a new chore waiting in the wings. And then there are the notifications. Endless pings and vibrations pulling your attention in 100 different directions. It's a dizzying dance. And sometimes it feels like we're just scrambling to keep up, barely catching our breath between tasks. In this relentless pursuit of efficiency and productivity, it's easy to let the moments of genuine connection slip through our fingers, isn't it? We're physically present, perhaps, but our minds are already on the next thing, mentally ticking off items from the infinite to-do list. This is where the core message of deep listening really hit home for me, and where I found a surprising resonance with the ancient wisdom of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, famously urged us to remember, do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. For him and for the Stoics generally, this wasn't a morbid pronouncement, but a call to urgency, a reminder that the present moment, this now, is all we truly have. It's an invitation to focus on what truly matters, to live intentionally, rather than drifting through life, perpetually planning for a future that might never arrive, or dwelling on a past that's already gone. In our modern context, Marcus's words feel like a direct challenge to the constant busyness that consumes us. He's essentially telling us that endless tasks and future worries can steal our present, and with it, our capacity for genuine human connection. Deep listening, I've come to realize, is one of the most powerful ways we can reclaim that presence. It's a deliberate act of choosing to be fully here, now, for another person, rather than being swept away by the current of our own obligations and distractions. I've felt this insight play out so vividly at home, particularly after a long, demanding day for both my wife and me. She'll walk in, often looking tired, maybe a little stressed from whatever challenges her day has thrown her way. My default, and I suspect many of us share this, is often to immediately jump into fix-it mode. I'll ask, what happened? How can I help? What did you do about it? Or worse, I'll start listing off my own demanding day in some unspoken competition of who had it tougher. But what deep listening has helped me understand, and what I've slowly, painfully learned through experience, is that she doesn't always need me to fix her stress. She doesn't need a solution to her problems in that moment. What she needs, far more often, is simply for me to sit down, look at her, really look at her, and truly hear what she's saying and what she's not saying. It's about creating that safe space, as Casriel describes, where she can just unpack her day, vent her frustrations, or simply share her feelings without interruption, without judgment, and crucially, without me feeling the urgent need to offer unsolicited advice. When I manage to quiet my own internal chatter, when I consciously choose to put aside my phone, to turn off the mental planning of dinner or tomorrow's work, and just be there, the shift is palpable. Her shoulders relax a little, her voice softens, and in that space she often finds her own clarity, her own solutions, just by articulating her thoughts aloud to a truly receptive ear. It's a testament to the power of pure presence. This is the essence of what the book conveys when it talks about real connection beating constant busyness. It's about choosing depth over speed, quality over quantity in our interactions. In a world that constantly tells us to multitask, to be more efficient, to always be doing, deep listening dares us to simply be. It invites us to slow down, to prioritize the human element above the ticking clock, and to understand that the most valuable thing we can offer another person, in many moments, is our undivided, patient, and empathetic attention. It's a radical act, in its own way, to simply stop and listen. And it's an act that holds immense Stoic wisdom, reminding us to be fully present for the only moment we truly possess. Part 4. You know, it's a strange thing, but so many of the conflicts we experience, whether they're minor workplace disagreements or more intense arguments at home, often don't stem from genuine malice. They often spring from something far simpler, yet equally destructive: the profound feeling of not being heard. Someone feels misunderstood, their perspective dismissed, and from that fertile ground, resentment or defensiveness begins to sprout. This insight, that listening reduces conflict and stress, is a really powerful thread running through deep listening, and it resonates deeply with a core Stoic teaching. Epictetus, that wise old slave-turned-philosopher, famously told us, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." For a long time, I interpreted that primarily through a lens of personal resilience. Don't let external events bother you. Control your emotions. But as I've wrestled with the ideas in deep listening, I've come to see how beautifully Epictetus's wisdom applies directly to our interactions with others, especially when conflict starts to brew. It's not just about controlling my emotional reaction to an upsetting event. It's also about controlling my reaction to what someone says or how they say it, particularly when I feel challenged or defensive. My instinct, especially in the fast-paced, results-driven environment of work, is often to defend my point quickly, to lay out my reasoning, to prove I'm right. If a colleague questions my approach on a project or suggests an alternative that feels like a critique, that internal switch immediately flips. My brain starts gathering evidence, constructing my counter-argument, preparing for battle. It's a very natural, almost primal response, isn't it? We want to protect our ideas, our contributions, our sense of competence. I remember a specific instance a few months back. We were in a team meeting discussing a new feature for a product. I'd spent a good amount of time researching and planning my proposed solution, and I felt pretty confident about it. Then, a newer team member, let's call him Alex, politely but firmly raised some concerns and offered an entirely different technical path. My initial internal response was a familiar prickle of defensiveness. My brain immediately began to list all the reasons why my plan was superior, why his suggestion was misguided, or simply hadn't considered certain constraints. I was ready to launch into a detailed rebuttal. But then, something clicked. Maybe it was a fleeting memory of reading Deep Listening, or perhaps a quiet echo of Stoic practice reminding me to pause, to observe my internal state, to control what was within my power. I consciously made the choice not to immediately jump in. Instead, I took a deep breath, reminded myself of Epictetus's words, "My reaction is what matters," and turned my full attention to Alex. I leaned forward, made eye contact, and instead of formulating my next point, I simply focused on listening. Really listening. I asked open-ended questions. Could you walk us through your thinking on that, Alex? What led you to that particular approach? What are the main benefits you see, and what concerns do you have about the current plan? And then, crucially, I allowed silence. I didn't interrupt. I didn't nod vigorously or make leading noises. I just created space. As Alex explained his reasoning, the tension I had felt in my shoulders, in my jaw, slowly started to ease. He wasn't trying to undermine me. He genuinely had a different perspective, based on his own expertise and a slightly different understanding of the problem. By giving him the runway to fully articulate his thoughts, not just the surface-level objections, but the underlying assumptions and goals, I started to see the project from a new angle. I began to identify valid points in his argument that my own tunnel vision had completely missed. This wasn't about me conceding or admitting I was wrong immediately. It was about understanding. And just as importantly, Alex felt heard. That act of listening, of giving space and allowing him to fully explain himself without immediate pushback, completely dissolved the adversarial dynamic. It shifted from a potential debate, a contest of wills, to a genuine collaboration. We ended up integrating elements of both our approaches, creating a hybrid solution that was far more robust and innovative than either of our initial individual ideas. This experience, for me, was Stoicism in action, precisely as Epictetus described it. The event was the disagreement, the challenge to my plan. My automatic, ingrained reaction would have been a defensive counterattack, escalating the tension and likely hindering a productive outcome. But by consciously choosing to control what was within my power, my presence, my patience, my decision not to react impulsively, but to instead actively listen, I changed the entire trajectory of that interaction. I managed my own internal landscape first. The storm of potential conflict didn't have to rage. It was quietly diffused because I chose to offer a receptive ear rather than an immediate retort. And the benefit? Not just a better project outcome, but significantly reduced stress for everyone involved. Misunderstandings thrive in the absence of deep listening. They ferment in the quick assumptions and unverified interpretations we make when we're only half present. By deliberately creating that safe space, being fully present, and allowing someone to unfold their thoughts completely, we diffuse tension, lower stress, and transform potential conflict into genuine collaboration. It makes the workplace, and indeed our homes, feel a lot less like a battleground and more like a space for mutual understanding and growth. It's truly a practical superpower in our often combative world. Part 5, the superpower of presence in a distracted world. Building on from that idea of diffusing conflict through listening, there's another profound benefit that deep listening highlights, one that feels particularly relevant in our hyper-connected yet often disconnected modern world: the sheer power of presence. This isn't just about making others feel good. It's about making us, the listeners, feel calmer and more grounded too. Seneca, the Roman Stoic, offered a warning that feels incredibly prescient for our times, despite being written thousands of years ago. He observed that much of life is wasted because we scatter our attention, constantly pulled in too many directions, never fully committing to any one moment or task. He urged us to consolidate our time, to focus our efforts, and to live with intention. Now, apply that to our current reality. today, our attention isn't just scattered. It's actively stolen, minute by minute, by the relentless tug of our phones, the endless scroll of social media feeds, the ping of new emails. It's a constant battle for our focus, and often we're losing. We're physically present, but our minds are often elsewhere, fractured into 100 tiny pieces across various digital demands. Yet, amidst all this noise and distraction, when you genuinely give someone your full undivided attention, truly, deeply listen, something magical happens. It's rare, so rare in fact that it almost feels like a superpower. Think about it. When was the last time someone gave you their complete, unhurried, focused attention without glancing at their watch or their phone or mentally drafting their next email? It's unforgettable, isn't it? That feeling of being seen, truly seen, and understood. I experience this most acutely and perhaps most beautifully with my kids. They'll come tumbling in after school, bursting with some incredibly important, often convoluted story about their day. It might be about a tiny Lego piece, or a drawing that went slightly wrong, or a friend's completely tangential comment. My initial inclination, especially if I'm juggling a work call or trying to cook dinner, is to half listen, to offer an uh-huh and a vague nod while my mind is still elsewhere. But when I manage to resist that pull, when I make the conscious choice to put down whatever I'm doing, crouch down to their level, make eye contact, and really truly listen to their messy, meandering story, their faces light up. It's like a little sun switch has been flipped inside them. Their confidence grows, their storytelling becomes more animated, and they feel utterly validated, utterly important. In that moment, the specific content of the story often matters less than the act of receiving my full, unwavering presence. They're not just being heard, they're being affirmed. This isn't just a benefit for them, though. This is where I find the reciprocal power of deep listening for myself. When I engage in that kind of focused attention, when I shut out the external noise and my own internal chatter, I feel a grounding sensation. My own mind, which moments before might have been racing with deadlines and domestic tasks, suddenly quiets. The fragmented pieces of my attention knit back together. I become calmer, clearer, more anchored in the present moment. It's a mindful practice, really, without the need for a meditation cushion. It draws directly from Seneca's wisdom about scattering our attention. By consciously choosing to focus intensely on one thing, the person speaking before me, I am, in effect, reclaiming my own scattered attention. I'm bringing it back to a single, valuable point. And in doing so, I cultivate a sense of inner peace and clarity that's surprisingly refreshing in our overstimulated lives. Deep listening makes the case that presence is a modern superpower for exactly this reason. In a world where distraction is the default, giving someone your full attention is a rare and profound gift. It's unforgettable for the recipient, yes, but it's also transformative for the giver. It builds stronger bonds, certainly, but it also cultivates that inner stillness and calm that the Stoics valued so highly. It makes us more coherent, more whole, less swept away by the currents of external demands. It's a practice that doesn't just make others feel seen. It helps us to see ourselves and the world with greater clarity and groundedness. It's a powerful tool, not just for connection, but for our own well-being. Part 6, Deep Listening. Nourishing the Human Swarm. So, we've talked about how deep listening fosters real connection by valuing presence over productivity, how it helps to diffuse conflict by allowing people to truly feel heard, and how it gives us a grounding presence in a world of endless distraction. All these benefits are significant on an individual level for the person speaking and for us as listeners. But there's a deeper, more profound layer to this, one that ties directly into the Stoic understanding of our place in the world. Marcus Aurelius, that emperor-philosopher, often reminded himself and us in his meditations of our interconnectedness. He famously wrote, "That which is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." This isn't just some abstract philosophical concept. It's a deeply practical truth about human existence. We are social creatures, inherently linked to one another. Our well-being, our flourishing, is intrinsically tied to the well-being of the collective, whether that collective is our family, our team at work, our community, or humanity at large. And this is precisely where deep listening steps in as far more than just a personal skill or a kind act towards another individual. It's how the whole swarm of our relationships, our family, our friends, our colleagues, not only stays alive, but truly thrives. Think about a family unit. If parents are too busy, too distracted, or too focused on their own agendas to truly listen to their children, what happens? Misunderstandings accumulate. Frustrations build up. Children might start to feel unheard, unseen, and that can manifest in all sorts of ways: acting out, withdrawing, or just a general sense of disconnection. The same applies in a marriage. If both partners are so caught up in their own daily demands that they stop creating space to deeply hear each other, to genuinely tune into the other's joys, fears, and daily struggles, the relationship can slowly, subtly erode. It becomes less a partnership and more two parallel lives running side by side, rarely intersecting on a deep, meaningful level. It's like a garden that isn't watered. It doesn't immediately die, but it slowly, inevitably wilts. In the workplace, the effect is equally profound. A team where colleagues listen to each other, not just to gather information, but to truly understand perspectives, to empathize with challenges, to acknowledge contributions. That's a team that collaborates effectively. It's a team where trust flourishes, where innovation is fostered because people feel safe to share half-formed ideas, knowing they will be heard and considered, not immediately judged or dismissed. Conversely, a team where everyone is talking past each other, where ideas are cut off, where individuals feel ignored. That team is constantly battling internal friction. Productivity suffers, morale plummets, and ultimately the swarm breaks down. For the Stoics, living in harmony with others was a fundamental virtue. It wasn't about being a doormat, but about recognizing our shared humanity and our mutual dependence. Deep listening, in this light, is a primary tool for cultivating that harmony. It's a deliberate investment in the health of our collective. When I consciously choose to slow down and truly listen to my wife, it's not just an act of kindness to her. It's an act of care for us, for the fabric of our relationship. When I listen deeply to a colleague's concerns, it's not just good professional etiquette. It's an act that strengthens our team's cohesion and our ability to achieve shared goals. It's about building stronger, more resilient bonds. It fosters empathy, which is the bedrock of any healthy human interaction. When you truly listen, you step into someone else's shoes, even for a moment. You gain a glimpse into their inner world, their unique experiences, their struggles, and their triumphs. That expanded understanding doesn't just benefit them. It broadens your own perspective, making you a more compassionate, more effective, and ultimately, a more truly human individual. So, this isn't just about individual betterment, though it certainly achieves that. Deep listening is an essential practice for the collective good. It's how we nourish our relationships, prevent misunderstandings from festering into full-blown conflicts, and build the kind of trust that allows families, friendships, and teams to flourish. It ensures that the swarm, our interwoven human connections, isn't just surviving, but thriving. Part 7. One moment of listening, one moment of calm. So we've explored the profound impact of deep listening, how it builds genuine connection, diffuses conflict, and grounds us in a distracted world, all principles echoed in ancient Stoic wisdom. But here's the thing, and it's a point I really want to emphasize because it makes this whole practice feel achievable. You absolutely do not need to practice deep listening all the time. Let's be realistic. We're juggling a lot. There are moments when you're just trying to get through the grocery store with a screaming toddler, or you're on a deadline with 5 minutes to spare, or you're simply too mentally exhausted to engage deeply. And that's okay. The Stoics didn't preach perfection, but rather consistent effort and intentionality in our pursuit of virtue. They understood that progress, not perfection, was the goal. And this applies beautifully to the art of deep listening. The key isn't to be a perfect, deep listener 24/7. That's an impossible and frankly unsustainable expectation. Instead, the real power, as deep listening subtly suggests, lies in conscious, deliberate choice. It's about choosing one moment, just one in your day, to practice it. Imagine deliberately carving out just a few minutes each day, perhaps at dinner or during a specific meeting at work, or even during those precious moments winding down with your child at bedtime, and committing to truly listen. In that chosen moment, your intention isn't to fix, isn't to advise, isn't to prepare your own brilliant retort. It's simply to receive, to listen without interruption, without rushing to answer, and without the internal chatter of your own thoughts demanding attention. For me, that chosen moment often manifests around the dinner table. It's easy, after a long day of work, to zone out, glance at the phone, or let the kids' chatter wash over me while my mind is still sorting through emails. But lately, I've been trying to make a conscious effort to pick one person at the table, maybe my wife, maybe one of the kids, and just dedicate a few minutes to truly hearing their story from the day. I put my phone away, I turn my body towards them, and I just listen. Not just to the words, but to the tone, to the emotions, to the unspoken parts. And you know what? Those few minutes, that conscious commitment to simply being present and deeply attentive, can genuinely change the tone of the entire evening. When I listen to my daughter recount some elaborate, often fantastical event from her school day, and I respond with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions to understand her world, I see her light up. Her eyes sparkle, her voice gains confidence. She feels seen. And when I do the same for my wife, after she's shared a frustration from her workday, and I resist the urge to immediately offer solutions, instead just reflecting back what I hear her feeling, she visibly relaxes. The tension in her shoulders eases. We connect. That single act of deep listening, chosen and executed with intention, serves as an anchor. It pulls us out of the scatterbrain default mode that Seneca warned against, and into a moment of genuine human connection. It injects a sense of calm and meaning into the relentless rush of our daily lives. It's like finding a quiet eddy in a fast-flowing river. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being deliberate. It's about recognizing that even a small, consistent practice of deep listening can ripple outwards, improving your relationships, reducing your own stress, and making you feel more grounded and present. It's a testament to the Stoic idea that true change, true self-mastery, often begins with small, consistent, intentional actions focused on what's within our control, our attention, and our presence in the here and now. So the practical takeaway here isn't to overhaul your entire way of interacting, but to simply identify one small window each day, and in that window, commit to the profound act of truly hearing another person. You might just find those few minutes become the most valuable of your day, shifting the entire atmosphere from hurried to harmonious. Part 8. Further reading. Deepening your listening practice. We've spent some time now exploring the ideas from deep listening, from the simple yet profound act of creating a safe space for others to the quiet superpower of presence in our frantic world. We've seen how these modern insights echo the ancient wisdom of the Stoics, reminding us that true connection, reduced conflict, and personal grounding all stem from the discipline of our attention. If these ideas have resonated with you, if you're feeling that quiet tug to explore this further, I'd highly recommend a couple of other books that really complement Emily Casriel's work beautifully. For those who want to dive even deeper into the nuances of why we struggle to listen and how to overcome those internal barriers, Michael P. Nichols' book, The Lost Art of Listening, is an absolute gem. Nichols, a seasoned therapist, takes a slightly different angle, delving into the psychological and emotional reasons why we often fail to truly hear each other. He explores how our own anxieties, our need to fix, our internal narratives, and even our cultural upbringing can hijack our ability to be present. It's less about a step-by-step technique and more about a profound psychological exploration of the listening process and why it's so vital for genuine human intimacy. For me, reading Nichols felt like getting a detailed map of my own internal landscape during a conversation. He helped me identify those subtle moments when my mind drifts, when my ego gets in the way, or when I subconsciously shut down. It's a fantastic companion to deep listening because it deepens the self-awareness aspect, really pushing you to confront your own shadows, those unacknowledged biases and assumptions that Casriel also touches on. It made me reflect on how often I project my own experiences onto others, rather than truly letting their unique narrative unfold. The other book that pairs wonderfully with this theme, particularly if you're interested in reducing conflict and fostering deeper understanding in your relationships, is Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. Rosenberg's work is less about listening in the passive sense and more about a full paradigm shift in how we communicate, both listening and speaking. His core idea revolves around identifying universal human needs and expressing our observations, feelings, needs, and requests without judgment or blame. While it's often framed around speaking clearly, deep listening is absolutely fundamental to its practice. You can't understand someone's underlying needs if you're not truly listening to them, beyond their words of anger or frustration, to hear the deeper human yearning beneath. I found NVC, as it's often called, to be incredibly practical for those tense family discussions or tricky work negotiations. It teaches you to listen for the needs being expressed, even when the words are accusatory or inflamed. It's about developing an empathy that seeks to understand, rather than to retaliate or defend. And that, of course, ties directly back to what we've discussed from a Stoic perspective. Controlling our reactions, focusing on what is within our power, our attention, our empathy, and understanding that others are often acting from a place of perceived need, just as we are. These books, The Lost Art of Listening and Nonviolent Communication, together with deep listening, create a powerful trinity. They weave together psychology, communication theory, and practical application, and they all resonate so strongly with Stoic wisdom. The Stoics understood that reason, self-awareness, and our connection to a larger human community were paramount. They didn't have TikToks to distract them, but they certainly understood the inner noise and the external pressures that can prevent us from living a truly virtuous and connected life. These modern authors, in their own way, are simply shining a new light on how timeless the need for real listening, for genuine presence, truly is. They show us that cultivating the inner discipline to truly hear another person isn't just a modern trend. It's a fundamental part of what it means to be a thoughtful, contributing human being. They remind us that the work of self-improvement, of becoming a better person, is deeply intertwined with how we engage with and understand the people around us. Part 9, a margin note on listening. Listening is not waiting to reply. It is giving space for another soul to breathe. Part 10, Algospeak and the future of communication, that margin note. Listening is not waiting to reply. It is giving space for another soul to breathe. Really encapsulates the essence of what we've been talking about today. It's not just a skill, but an act of generosity, a profound way to connect in a world that often feels starved of genuine connection. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing we can offer another person isn't advice or solutions, but simply the quiet, patient, and open space of our full attention. As we reflect on the journey through deep listening, it makes me think about the very fabric of our communication in the digital age. We've talked about the noise of daily life, the constant pings and notifications that steal our attention away from the people right in front of us. But there's another layer to this digital landscape that shapes how we communicate, how we express ourselves, and sometimes how we even dare to think or speak. So, for our next conversation, I want us to delve into something that's increasingly influencing our interactions, particularly online: Algospeak. It's a fascinating, sometimes troubling phenomenon, the language of the internet age. We'll explore how the words we choose online are often not just about conveying meaning to another human, but are strategically designed to bypass algorithms, to avoid censorship, or to signal belonging to certain online tribes. Think about how words like unalive or lethally adorable replace more direct terms, or how certain phrases are used to hint at topics that might otherwise be suppressed. It's a kind of linguistic dance we perform for the digital gatekeepers. We'll look at how this impacts what we feel we can say, what we dare to say, and how it might subtly reshape our honesty and authenticity, both online and off. It's a stark contrast to the open, unvarnished communication that deep listening encourages, isn't it? It makes you wonder what gets lost when our language becomes primarily about navigating the digital currents, rather than expressing our deepest selves. It raises questions about clarity, sincerity, and the very nature of truth in our online interactions. And as always, we'll bring a Stoic lens to that conversation, considering what the ancients might have said about integrity of speech and the pursuit of truth in an environment of coded language. It promises to be a really interesting exploration of how our modern digital lives are shaping our fundamental human act of communication. Now, if you've found these reflections on deep listening helpful, or if this conversation has sparked some thoughts for you, please consider giving us a like or sharing this with someone who might benefit from it. And if you haven't already, subscribing to the podcast helps us reach more people who are also navigating the busy currents of life and looking for a moment of calm, thoughtful reflection. It's a small act that helps this little corner of meaningful conversation grow. Also, if you're keen to dive into the book itself, I truly recommend picking up Emily Casriel's Deep Listening through your favorite online bookstore. Supporting authors by purchasing their books is a small but significant act that keeps thoughtful ideas and profound insights circulating in a world that needs them more than ever. It's how we keep these important conversations alive, allowing them to ripple out and hopefully make our busy lives a little more connected, a little more meaningful, and a little more deeply heard.